And we usually give the stream just a second to wind up here. Um, Hopefully, no one will bump into me while this is live. But I do have the chat pulled up just in case. I wanted to kind of record a video today because, as you can kind of see in the background, I wrote an article about the love that I developed for Duelyst over the course of a year, and a lot of the concerns that I had with the direction it was taking. And I was writing this whole thing, and I went back and edited it, changed bits I didn't like, rephrased stuff throughout that entire day. I think all of Thursday, and then posted it on Friday. I mean, it literally took me a long time, and I got to the point where I was just like, okay, I've been going on for too much. There's just too much to get in here. And so I just kind of opened it up for discussion and said, well, let's see what becomes of this. And I just hoped it was for its best. And I really wanted, more than anything else, for it to be kind of this article where we really talked about what makes Duelyst great. And that was kind of its own little struggle because there's so much in there about things I don't like. And I think Smasher even made the comment he wondered if his protest of some of the direction the game was taking would have gone better if he talked more about the things he liked than that he didn't like. And I agree with him, or at least with his idea that would have been the case. And in some ways, as I've kind of reflected on how people responded to this article, and some people have said some really great stuff, had some really great ideas, made some really good comments about the state of Duelyst and where it's going and what's happening with it. And it's given me a lot to think about personally, but I think that overall, when I wrote the article, I think it's had a negative impact on the community. And I think that's not good, because I actually think that the Duelyst is the premier competitive game to play. I really believe that. Now, I can't speak to Shadowverse because I've never played it, but I played a little bit of Hearthstone and a little bit of Gwent and a little bit of some of these other games, and I really just don't like them as much, I guess, is the end result. I don't get the same feels when I'm playing them that I get whenever I'm playing Duelyst and on a competitive level. It's difficult to talk about what the game could be without talking about the things that are holding back from that. That's not to say that the game is bad or that the game doesn't have a major skill factor to it. It does. But I think that there needs to be a skill that there is no upper limit on. And it needs to not be your understanding of the matchup. Because your understanding of a matchup is a rote memorization skill. It's the lowest form of knowledge that you can have, is your ability to just memorize something and repeat it. That's why the American school system struggles so much, is because for the longest time we taught our kids based on rote memory, which is a terrible skill set. All you get's engineers, you get no scientists. But that's a different topic of conversation. So I want to talk about how you do that, how you get this no upper limit skill to be a major factor, and not have it be a rote memorization skill. And that's what I wanted to do, and I thought that maybe doing it in a video would be better. Largely because it won't eat up all my time. And I know that's kind of a selfish thing for me to do, but it's, I mean, you can probably see the dark circles around my eyes, guys. I'm trying to keep up with the things I'm juggling for Duelyst with the job that I have in real life. And I get so absorbed in what I'm doing. I read everything. Every single comment that somebody made on that thread, I read it. And that's why I believe maybe overall I had more of a negative impact than I meant. And here's what I'm going to get with on the article itself. People took from the article what they wanted to hear. They found the parts where I talked about things that they agreed with, and they latched onto that, and that was the part that they stuck to. There were maybe 2 or 3 guys that really talked about the whole article with me, and I appreciate those guys. I appreciate everybody who commented. Really, I do. Everybody gave me something to think about. But my goal in writing the article was not to articulate in a different way what you had already been feeling. I try very hard to formulate my own thoughts. I'm not the fastest thinker on the fly. That's why I prefer writing to videos, prefer writing to videos, because I'm not the quickest thinker. I like to think things through carefully. In chess, I'm the guy who doesn't like to have a timer. I'll play you a game of chess if you'll let us. If we'll play over the course of days, I'm in Wonderland, baby. That's the best. I want to mull it over. I want to think very carefully about my next play. And in some extent, I do that in Duelyst, and I appreciate that I am on a timer in Duelyst, because I don't think that the games are meant to go long, but that's who I am. I want to think things through step by step very carefully. And so a video is much more challenging for me. And I think that when I wrote the article, like I said a second ago, I think I gave ammunition to people. I gave them a new way to say what they were already feeling. And I think that taking any one small piece of it as a part, that's whining. You know what I mean? That's what you're doing. You're going out there and you're whining about the state of the game. You know, oh, I don't like X, Y, Z for whatever reason. And that's not okay. You need to have a concern, not a complaint. And I know it's a fine distinguishment. It's a small fractional thing. But a complaint is sort of like giving up. You're placing it, the responsibility and the ability to do something in somebody else's hands and saying, okay, that's it. When you bring up a concern, you're trying to engage dialogue. You want to give them something to think about, and for them to come back with you, and then to work back and forth and speak. And I think that that's always a challenge whenever you're talking about people who are developing in the game, because in the end, the people that my article hurt, and it wasn't intentional, but that doesn't make it any less my responsibility for doing it, the people that I hurt were the developers of the game. And whether I hurt their reputation or their feelings or whatever may have come of that, maybe I just had a bad day, or maybe they just blew it off. They didn't even know. That's not the point. The impact of what I said in the article, how much it affected them, doesn't matter. It still just means it wasn't necessarily right for me to do, because it wasn't the right way to go about things. So I'm gonna try my hardest to do things the right way, which is to not give up halfway through the article. Because that's what I did. I stopped. And a lot of people latched on to the RNG effects of Duelyst. And they latched onto that because that's where their concerns were. And it's the point I highlighted the most, because that was what I was talking about. That's what I was passionate about when I was writing. And then when I just realized that it was too much, there was too much to put on paper, and I said, okay, I need to open this up to discussion. I didn't consider how much not getting everything down would affect people. Because honestly, when I wrote the thing, I thought maybe 5 or 6 people would read it. If I'm being honest, I honestly thought that the only person who was going to read it that was really going to care or even think anything about it, I thought it'd be Thanatos, because I like the guy and we're kind of close. At least I feel like I'm close to him. I don't know how he feels. But I thought he would read it, and I thought he might come back to me with a question or two for clarification. And if I had a good idea, I thought he might kick it up to the dev team. And that's really the goal. That was really the goal of the article. I never imagined, foolishly, that so many people would read it. Because it is very long. It is very lengthy. And that was a mistake on my part. That I'm a little embarrassed, because like I said, I think I just gave people the expression being live ammunition to attack the developers with. And that was foolish, stupid even. So let me try again. This is an accepted truth for me, and this is where I begin my thought process. And you don't have to watch all the way through the video. You may just get on and say, this guy's an idiot, you know, who cares? he sounds a lot dumber when he's on video than whenever he's writing. And you're probably right, I do. And that's fine. But what I'm going to try to do is explain to you how I think about things, how it's step by step, very careful. And now I'm going to skip a lot of the going off on one side and finding out I don't like it, because I've already done that for this. So an accepted truth for me is that Duelyst is fun, and it's fun because it's a skill-based competitive game. And the conjecture here is that positioning is the most important element of Duelyst. It's what makes matches skill-based more than anything else. There was, in my opinion, no upper limit on how good you could get at positioning in Duelyst. And there are a variety of factors that contribute to the slow removal of the importance of positioning in Duelyst. The corollary to that conjecture is that the degradation of emphasis on positioning as the core mechanic to succeed in a match decays the competitive level of Duelyst and subsequently how fun the game is. There needs to be no glass ceiling on Duelyst, and I'll get into that in a little bit. And so let's talk a little bit about the elements, and these are in no particular order. I'm not saying that this is the most important factor. I'm not saying that this is the least important factor based on when I talk about them or how passionately I talk about them, because I don't know the answers to these questions yet. These are just questions for me. But these are the elements that I think weaken the importance of positioning and skill in Duelyst, not necessarily just positioning, but the skill factor of a player as an overall thing. I just latch on to positioning because I think there's no upper limit on how good you can get at it in a game that respects it as the core mechanic. So first, we have randomization elements, RNG. We talk about it all the time. I tried to put my finger on it, and I would go over what I said in the article, but the reality is that Monk Business, who was one of the guys who responded to the thing, linked me a video from YouTube, and I'll put the link up later. And I think that it really puts its finger on how to think about randomness. It talked about input randomness and output randomness. And now essentially what they're saying is that output randomness can give you incorrect feedback. If I make a play and then I have to do some random element to find out if that play was good or not, then that's an example of extreme output randomness, and it gives you false information. You may have made the correct play and just gotten unlucky, or you may have made the wrong play and gotten lucky. And so that's where we want to avoid. We want to avoid very heavily. We want to avoid output randomness. So for example, and I'm in the article I tried to stick purely to theory. In this I will talk more specifically about cards. I play a Meltdown. Was it the correct play or not? Don't know until I activate my Bloodborne spell. Activate my Bloodborne spell, it hit the wrong target. Well, that cost me the game because I only had an extra turn to live. I live or die on a single turn, and that happens more often than we'd probably like to admit. And so it was the wrong play, obviously, because I lost the game, right? Well, no, shoot, man, that's a powerful play. Dropping a Meltdown is a powerful play, and getting to the point where you can drop a Meltdown is a powerful play. And so from that perspective, Meltdown's extremely swingy. It has an output randomness factor. I have no idea whether I made the correct play or not based on whether I was successful or not at winning the game. I have no idea if playing Meltdown was correct because it adds noise to that scenario. And for the other guy, should he have moved in? Should he have moved out? How's he supposed to know? It has a stat line that says you should run away from it, but it has an ability that said you should run and attack it. So overall, how's he supposed to know if he made the correct decision? Because it looks like he's in a lose-lose situation for him, whether he comes in or goes out. So randomization elements, they have a lot to do, and see, there I go, using the word a lot. They are one of the things that I believe is affecting the importance of positioning.